to read minds is a dangerous gift. An all-new Buffy.
She can read our minds, our every impulse and fantasy.
The ability to read minds is a powerful gift.
God, Xander, is that all you think about?
Actually, bye.
But with that power comes a price.
If it doesn't go away, she'll go insane.
An all-new Buffy. The ability to read minds is a dangerous gift. An all-new Buffy on the WB's new Tuesday. The ability to read minds is a dangerous gift. An all-new Buffy tonight on the WB's new Tuesday.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
And this week, we're going to be backstroking into Season 3, Episode 18, Earshot.
Yes,
Which
we
means
are.
someone in this episode gets shot in the ear.
That is not what it means.
Oh, that's not what it meant?
That's not
Okay.
not at all what it means.
Okay.
You are mistaken. I'm sorry.
You know, I do take everything, like, literally.
I know you do.
Anyway,
that's
what's
why
going on?
that's why I saw when you first logged on, you had cucumbers and mayonnaise with you.
Exactly. I told you I'd bring them today, so...
You did.
Anyway, what's going on, James? How are you? How was your week? And what's new, if anything?
I'm all right. My week was okay, and nothing new. You can't tell on the video, but I did rearrange my my new office guest room situation, so that's all where I want it to be now and all set up. Granted, like I said on the video, it looks exactly the same as it did last week. So you guys can't tell, but I know it.
You know it deep down in your heart.
Deep down in the cockles of my heart.
Ah, cockles. So, do we have anything from last week we need to discuss?
We do. Darlene left us her thoughts and review for last week's episode, which was episode 17, Enemies. She started out by defending herself against not realizing that there wasn't an episode the previous week. She said she doesn't get notifications from the Facebook page, even though she's got them turned on. So I don't know what the issue is there. I'll look into that.
I'm in some great deals on Facebook, and I have notifications turned on them, and I only get like some of them sometimes. Yeah. You know, Facebook, it's stupid.
Right. She also says that she thinks you're pretty cool too. You said she was cool.
Yeah,
she thanked me for my explanation about Willow not remembering that Anya's necklace was the impetus for the episode The Wish.
Right.
She said she's also watching Buffy on Hulu and is often also frequently recommended Twilight, which upsets her as much as it upsets me.
I think it upsets anyone who's over the age of, I don't know, 30.
I would disagree with that. I bet there's still a lot of older Twilight fans out there.
Well, yeah, but you know, I'm just playing the averages here, you know.
In fact, I would be willing to bet there's probably people out there that have seen Twilight and have never seen Buffy.
And that's just a sad statement on humanity right there.
It is.
And they think the Twilight vampire universe is like, that's what vampires always were. And I'm like,
Right. She says, and keep in mind, Darlene is a first-time viewer of the show.
Right, which is why it's so great getting her
exactly
her thoughts on each episode too to go with ours, since we are OGs,
multiple time viewers of the show.
Right.
She said that no part of her saw Angel's turning back into Angelus coming. So when it happened, she literally yelled no at the screen and sat with her jaw on the floor for several minutes.
Okay, good. So I wasn't the only one.
She said it felt like she could hear Buffy's heart breaking all over again. So yeah, I mean, you weren't the only one. I mean, I said it too last week when I first watched the episode. It was so out of left field. It was heartbreaking all over again. Like, it just, as a fan of the show and as a fan of Buffy and Angel together, there's no way you could have been emotionally prepared to be ready to go through that again.
Yeah, and I didn't talk about this last week, but I remember when I first watched that episode way back when, and I was so pissed off because I was like, wait a minute, it can't just be that easy and that willy-nilly to take his soul, because then they would just do it all the time. People would, you know what I'm saying? I was
Right.
so aggravated and pissed, and then, and in the end of the episode, I was like, oh, okay, I'm an overreacting dick. Never mind.
Right. She also agreed with us. She in regards to Faith's tirade. She says, "What the hell was Faith's tirade about? When has she ever tried to be the good girl or ever been told to be more like Buffy? That was completely lost on me, as was any sympathy I may have felt for that character. I'm back to square one with Faith." That's something you and I talked about. Her whole tirade in that scene about, trying to be good and always getting the be more like Buffy spiel. Like, it was completely out of left field again, because at no point over the course of the previous episodes had either of those things been true whatsoever.
Right. And the great thing is, as much as stupid as that was and everything, but the great thing is that Faith goes on to be a huge part of this universe and becomes a very well written, very solid character. So, but boy, in these early ones, yeah, they just didn't know. I just don't feel like they knew what the hell they wanted to do with her,
She goes on to say, "It's usually difficult for me to watch TV or movies because my brain almost always spoils it for me by seeing what's coming. But I did not see Angels not truly having been turned into Angelus coming. I enjoyed every second of that shock and awe." Again, that's, we said the same thing last week. It was Inception-like.
Yeah.
It was a twist within a twist.
Yeah, it was
so
a major mind fuck the first time I watched it.
Yeah, it was great, and I think we both said, if nothing else, that elevated the episode from like a 3 or 3.5 to the 4 that we both ended up giving it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, she gave it 4 glasses of room temperature milk.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, I never could get that out of my head. I was like, who the hell keeps a pitcher of warm milk out? What the hell?
Yeah, she says, I waffled a lot between rating this episode a 3.5 or a 4, and I also couldn't quite put my finger on why. Which is kind of, I think you said it last week too, and I had said it. Like, it's an odd episode because it feels like it should be a 5.
Yeah.
But there's just something missing.
Well, it's either missing or just something that, I guess maybe there's something that aggravates us at our core. I don't know.
Right. So, But that's all we have for last week. As always, Darlene, thank you for your perspective as a first time viewer. I think
Yes,
it's good. I think it's also aside from that, um, kind of a female perspective.
yeah. Well, yeah, we're getting a 2-for-1 there. We're getting the
Right.
female perspective and first time viewer perspective. So that's
Right.
pretty dope.
Yeah, 100%. So
It's all a sausage party up in this bitch normally.
right. So as always, please keep them coming, and anyone else that's listening or viewing, we say it every week. Please reach out to us with your thoughts and opinions and comments, and we will definitely address those.
Yeah. As long as they conform to our own, we will. I mean, I'm just kidding.
Nope. We'll even read as we have before. We'll read the things that disagree with us, and we'll try and explain why. Like with, I think the most recent one we had was with the Xander situation.
Mm-hmm.
Someone had emailed and said, they like Xander. They don't get why, we hate on him. And, I was more than happy to take the time at the beginning of the episode like this to try and, lay that out for someone and kind of, pinpoint where I personally am coming from on that. So,
yeah. And like we said, we also, back in the day, we loved Xander, and then
right.
viewing it as we are now, it's like, oh, he's a douche canoe.
He's bad. He's not good.
Yeah, he's not a good fella. Well, I think he is a good fella at his heart, at his core, but
right.
He's definitely he definitely has shades of douchiness.
Right. Yeah. So that's all we have for previous episodes. So why don't we, if you're ready?
Oh, I'm always ready, baby.
Put on our bikini bottoms.
Okay. Thong?
Of course.
Okay.
And get ready to dive in.
Okay.
To these dates and deets.
Let's freaking do it. I am in my thong speedo and ready to go.
So that we can fulfill your opening words of us backstroking right into this episode.
Let's fucking do it.
As previously stated, we are revisiting Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 3, Episode 18, our 52nd episode of the series overall, Enemies. Our episode director this week is Regis Kimball, and our episode credited writer is Jane Espenson. Our original air date, and this is something I alluded to at the end of last week's episode, so I'll bring it up now. Our original air date was supposed to be April 27th, 1999. But 1 week prior, on April 20th, 1999, 18-year-old Eric Harris and 17-year-old Dylan Klebold killed 13 people and injured 24 others before killing themselves at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado.
They did.
Subsequently, the episode was pulled from airing here in the States, and it eventually aired on September 20th, 1999, a full 2 months after the season 3 finale.
Yeah, especially mainly all because of a certain scene that occurs in this episode, which was eerily timed,
Right. But originally aired on the now defunct WB network. Our Nielsen rating for this episode was
episode that's brought to you by
was 3.6 million households when it first aired, ranking it 93rd out of the 139 network primetime shows for the week. But because it didn't air
in sequential order,
I wasn't able to find out where it ranked in the WB's rankings.
Sure.
For when it aired. I also think it's that's a 3.6 million is quite a drop from
I was going to say that's quite a dip.
our standard 4 plus million. So yeah, I think the fact that it aired 2 months ended up airing 2 months after the season 3 finale.
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't see it coming.
Right, didn't realize it was out there. It did air as a special Wednesday night Buffy event.
On an all-new Buffy Wednesday.
On an all-new Buffy Wednesday. And at this time, Buffy was airing Tuesday nights.
Right.
But yeah,
I remember that vividly, Tuesdays.
Right. All new WB Tuesday.
Buffy, the only show that keeps our network afloat. No.
Our regular cast, as always, includes Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia, David Boreanaz as Angel, Seth Green as Oz, and Anthony Stewart Head as Giles. Our guest cast this week includes Christine Sutherland as Joyce Summers, Alexis Denisoff as Wesley Wyndham Price, Ethan Erickson as Percy West, Danny Strong as Jonathan Levinson, Larry Bagby as Larry Blaisdell, Kareem Malecki Sanchez as Freddie Iverson, Justin Doran as Hogan Martin, Lauren Roman as Nancy Doyle, Wendy Worthington as the Lunch Lady, Robert RC as Mr. Beach, and Molly Bryant as Ms. Murray. Our episode synopsis this week reads, when Buffy acquires the ability to hear other people's thoughts, she uncovers a plot to massacre Sunnydale students, and the others race to find the killer.
Down in Lunch Lady Land. Sorry. Hey, do you think it means something when you're an actor and they give your character the name?
It means you're an idiot and you can't remember your character's name.
Okay, I just wondered.
That's why Tony Danza has always played characters named Tony.
Yeah, well, we know he's only got a couple of firing brain cells, so.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
My synopsis reads, a mouthless demon infects Buffy with the ability to hear everyone's thoughts, but what starts out as a useful power soon turns into a curse. James.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you take us into the lukewarm opening?
We open with our titular slayer Buffy fighting two ugly, mouthless. They're very reminiscent of the monsters from Go Fish.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Which we had previously stated in that episode were very reminiscent of the creature from the Black Lagoon design.
Mm-hmm.
She pulls the old run and stumble trick and manages to kill one of them while the other one kind of skedaddles out of there. And we do a close zoom on Buffy's hand and we see some glowing demon blood. I'm presuming it's demon blood on the back of her hand, and it kind of seems to disappear into her skin. And we pan over to the dead demon, and we see the same glowing blood oozing from the stab wound Buffy gave him. And that is our cold open. Very short cold open this week.
Very short cold open because they shot sperm on our hero's hand because that's what it looked like to me.
Wow.
Just saying. So we come back from what would have been our first commercial break, and we're at school in the library. The gang's pretty much all there, and Giles is explaining how they know nothing.
Yes.
He's trying to make it sound as though they might be onto some things, but obviously they know nothing. Wes comes in. He's late to the meeting, and he also knows absolutely fucking nothing. And Giles is pretty happy with making that abundantly clear that even with the Watcher Council's help and resources, Wes is equally in the dark. We do see, we do cut at the very end of that scene. We cut to Buffy, who's just scratching the shit out of her hand where that sperm had been shot on her, and she's still traumatized by being spermed on by this nasty demon. Then we cut to the halls, and Willow and Buffy are walking, and they're basically talking about Angel and the whole melodramatic situation from last week that I hated. And Buffy's still all up in her feels, which, I mean, being all up in your feels is fine, but as I alluded to last week, I feel like this is just more of the same nonsense of unnecessary, stuff. Angel did everything she wanted him to do, and now, she's like shitting on him for it. So that just drives me crazy. And we see basketball group come walking in. They're at Willow's locker now, and the kid from last week that Willow has been tutoring, he comes up and he's like, hey, can we meet? What did he say? He wasn't going to be available after school, so can we meet after
during fifth period? Yeah,
during fifth period instead. And Willow's like, sure. And we meet this new guy, Hogan, who's like, I guess supposed to be like, Michael Jordan or something. He's so great at basketball and blah blah blah. And Willow's like, she's going to go to the game, and everybody's going to go to the game except Buffy because she has to patrol. So I'm like, don't worry, Buffy. It's high school basketball. You're not missing anything. Then we cut to Giles' office, and Buffy's back. I'm going to assume this is a little bit later in the day. They don't make it clear, but it's a little bit later in the day, and Buffy's in there in Giles' office, and they're discussing this demon thing again, and she's just scratching the shit out of her hand. You can see how like red and irritated it is. And Giles finds in a tome, he finds where it says something along the lines of being touched by this blood or whatever will give that person an aspect of the demon. And she's like, what? She's freaking the fuck out. Like, I'm going to grow horns, or I'm going to get these crazy like claws or teeth, or, she's legit freaking out. And he's trying to, calm the situation down. And he's like, well, we don't know anything yet, just let's not go freaking out, basically. Let's wait and see, and let's do some more research. And so, we cut to beautiful Cordelia. I love Cordelia. Cheerleading, and it's a big pep rally outside in the what do you call that? The quad.
The quad, yeah. Courtyard,
quad, yeah. Whatever. And there's a big pep rally for the b-ball team, and they're spelling out this Hogan guy's name. Hulk Hogan. By the way, it's Hulk Hogan.
It is Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, literally.
Like he runs out and he's like, we're gonna score so many hoops, brother.
Let me tell you something, brother. And he's got Mean Gene Okerlund with him. It's really weird.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, they're big pep rally.
Macho Man's playing point guard.
Yeah, he jumps off the top of that wall in the quad and just drops an elbow on somebody. It's really weird. It's like a teenage cheerleader. He does that too. It's really strange.
Hogan gives Cordy the big leg drop.
Yeah, but she moves at the last minute and pins him. So yeah. So Buffy's still freaking out. She kind of goes off to the side and is talking to Willow again, and she's still freaking out about the horn. Like, she's just freaking. She doesn't know what this getting an aspect of the demon's gonna mean. And Willow's basically trying to calm her down, tell her everything's fine. It's nothing to freak out about. We don't know anything for sure yet. And we get a little little shot of Xander's jealousy. He sees Wes walking up the steps and looking down. He's like, he's looking at Cordy, my Cordy, he says, after talking about how she, totally not into her. And so yeah, it's just more Xanderness. Then we cut to Buffy that night. During the game, everybody's at the game except her. She's out walking the streets patrolling. Now, I wanted to ask you something.
Yes, sir.
Do you find it? Have you noticed how like there seems to be no? How am I looking to say this? There doesn't seem to be much concern or fear amongst the Scoobies about the fact that they have a rogue slayer in town who would like to kill them all.
It's kind of an extension of what I had kind of complained about, a few episodes ago, where like the whole like Faith killed a guy and doesn't seem to care thing was almost being played off as like a joke.
Well, yeah, it was kind of like Anchorman. They're just like, wow, Brick killed a guy.
Right.
Do you have a trident?
and now like, literally the only talk of Faith in this episode is when Giles like, well, at least Faith's treachery has been revealed now, and Buffy like being all salty that Angel kissed Faith, like
right. Which she
told him to do.
Yeah.
So I give that situation, like the Buffy Angel situation and her being angsty about it, I give it leeway to the extent that like she's a 17-year-old high school girl, like
fair enough.
What she says and what she means and what she does are I was going to say are three different things, but for a 17-year-old high school girl, that's actually like five different things.
Bro, for a 47-year-old woman, that's pretty standard operating.
So
let's be real.
So I give that situation doesn't irritate me like it irritates you.
I guess I am being a little unfair there. I guess I always forget that her character is a 17-year-old. Or is she? Wait, is she 18 yet?
She's not 18 yet.
Okay. Still, I mean, it wouldn't matter. I'm just saying. Yeah, I should really take that into consideration, I guess.
But and then yeah, so yeah, like in this throughout this episode, I was kind of like, shouldn't we be like taking this Faith situation a little bit more, like there should be some more concern going on here.
She made it clear she hates all of the Scoobies.
Right. And
she could easily kill any of them,
right.
Except Buffy.
Right. And on top of that, like they know that the mayor knows that they're onto him.
Right.
Like that's like double down on like shit. The Faith is a real danger to us right now.
Yeah, like shouldn't they have at least said, hey, let's have a little rule where how about nobody goes anywhere alone? How about we have
I'm sorry. I was just looking around and I realized how goofy I must look to the people viewing, but I literally am just realizing that the walls I thought were off-white in this room are actually a very light mint green.
Really? You know what they look like to me on camera?
They're probably dark. Like my camera's kind of dark.
They look gray.
Yeah, my camera's kind of dark.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah. So,
but
at least set up a thing where, hey, let's everything the buddy system.
Yeah, I don't.
Everybody's just going about their lives and their days like normal. Where, I mean, they could just walk out of school alone or whatever, and Faith could just be standing there and be like, "Ha, I'm gonna kill you," and what are they gonna do?
Right. I don't. I'm gonna like defer back to something you said earlier in this episode, about shit. I forgot exactly what you said now, but
I didn't say anything about shit.
No. But it was It was basically about the writers potentially not knowing exactly what they wanted to do with Faith.
Yeah,
When they brought Faith in. And I feel like this issue that we're discussing right now is a direct result of that.
Yeah.
You know, like Faith should be being hyped up as a much larger threat and problem than what they're currently doing.
Yeah, and the mayor too.
Right.
You know.
So yeah, that's a very long-winded way of saying yes, I agree with you.
Well, that's why we have the show. It's supposed to be long. But yeah, I just found that strange. I'm just saying, like, in a realistic perspective, I'd be like, I'm not going fucking anywhere alone, or at least without some type of fucking weaponry. Like, I'm giving everybody gats, and I'm like, listen, she's a slayer, but you can still shoot the bitch. So,
right. 100%. Even if I'm Buffy, like, you know what? I might be a little salty over what happened with Angel last week right now, even though it was of my own doing. But guess what? I'm gonna keep that motherfucker by my side right now because I stand the best chance of survival if Faith attacks with him.
Right. Oh well. So. I just wondered if I was the only one that kind of was like, okay, that's strange. But anyway, Buffy, it's that night, and Buffy is not at the game. She's patrolling, or seemingly patrolling. She's really just kind of meandering down the road at night. Doesn't really seem like she's like super investigating, but so she's doing her thing, and she's still clearly kind of wigged out by the whole aspect of the demon thing that might be coming, and then she hears a noise, and she's just like, what the hell? There's that again? What is that? I don't even understand why that keeps happening. Oh, it's because
I thought maybe when I moved out of the old house, that would stop.
Obviously, it's coming. It's coming from the interwebs.
It's coming.
It's a ghost in the interwebs.
I wasn't sure. I had convinced myself prior to recording that you weren't going to play that in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
When Angel first shows up, and you were instead going to play it later later in the episode in the beatdown scene.
Had I used my brain and thought of that, you would probably be right. So yeah, it's Angel. He comes out of literally nowhere, and she actually comments on that. She's like, "Well, yeah, obviously I didn't see you, so obviously you're there." And but yeah, he's basically just like, "Hey, you know, I'm just trying to protect you. I'm you know." She's all like, "Well, are you tracking me or are you tracking Faith?" And he's like, "The fuck." I have no interest in Faith. I did that all for you. I'm tracking you, okay? And I'm like, sorry, Angel. You know, you're the one. You're the 243-year-old banging a 17-year-old high schooler. You set yourself up for this.
Not even banging her. Like he can't bang her.
Banged.
Right. You know? Like you're literally just like
now you're just torturing yourself at this point.
Right. You're just puppy dogging around the 17-year-old high school girl.
Yeah. Like, so you're gonna have to deal with her wacky mood swings.
You get what you get, pal.
Yep. And she's
meanwhile he could have had Faith.
Yeah, but I don't want to sound like a sexist pig, but I normally do anyway. But I've always heard the saying, you don't put your dick in crazy.
Right. But
it is Eliza Dushku, so I might be able to go ahead.
Right. But you know, or he could still be evil and hooking up with Drew. And
I never liked Drew.
Right, but she's way more batshit than Faith, so imagine how good that sex is.
Oh, Drew, as I said many times, is like legit fucking batshit crazy peanut butter and jelly. You know, she is gone.
So imagine how good that sex is.
Yeah, true, but I guess we'll never know, James. We'll never know.
Sadly.
Anyway, so yeah, they finish their talk and they're it's a little better, I guess, but it's pretty clear that we're still in this holding pattern of, Buffy's all up in her feels and Angel's just like, it's clear that Angel doesn't understand at all. He doesn't get it at all because he's just like, I just did what you wanted me to do and whatever. And she's like, yes, but I'm a girl. I'm allowed to freak about everything. So he's just like, okay, I guess I'll just be over here. Let me know if we get back to normal. And that's that scene. And the next day we're at school. And what's happening, James? What is happening? What's happening? Dynamite.
They're Faith or not Faith. I got faith on the brain.
Yeah.
That's another thing, like spoiler alert, like to kind of go back to like the why aren't they more concerned? She's not in this episode at all.
I know.
Spoiler alert for anybody listening that hasn't watched. She's not in this episode at all. Like
massive reveal last week, massive stakes now out there, and they're just like, well, we don't need her this week.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you do.
Like, I talked about this before. Like, part of the problem with Faith's heel turn is that there wasn't enough Faith in the show leading up to that.
Yep.
And now, like, she's made this heel turn. It's been revealed to the Scoobies, and now she's just nowhere to be found again.
Yeah.
Like,
and they literally know. Oh no, they don't. I was going to say they literally know where she lives, but no, they don't.
Right.
They think they know where she lives, but she's in that dope ass apartment that Mayor gave.
Right.
Mayor Wilkins.
So yeah, we're the next day at Sunnydale High, and Willow, Oz, and Xander are talking about how great the basketball game last night was, and Willow shushes them as Buffy approaches, and they're like, oh, the game wasn't that good, blah blah blah, and of course Cordelia is nearby and hears them, and she's like, what are you talking about? It was a fantastic game. I've never cheered so hard in my life. I've still got knee marks on my back. And I was like, you slut.
I was like, woohoo!
And then you were like, oh, but they weren't my knee marks.
And then I cried myself to sleep that night.
Yeah. So Cordy's like, oh, it was a great game, blah blah blah. And then she leaves, and Xander watches her, over talking to some of her friends, and he wonders to himself, if her and Wesley have kissed, and Buffy is like, it really bothers you, doesn't it? And he's like, what? And she's like, the idea of Wesley and Cordelia kissing. And Xander's like, you read my mind. And Buffy kind of gets this look on her face like, huh. So then we cut to Buffy heading down a hallway, and she bumps into a teacher, Mr. Beach, and they have a brief exchange, and then she hears him think to himself that if they could just get rid of all the students, school would be great. And as she continues down the hallway, she proceeds to hear other thoughts. She hears a boy thinking to himself about how attractive she is, And at first she's kind of flattered, and then he Joss Whedon's it, and he's like, I just want to shove her against a locker, and then she like scurries off. She ends up in the library.
Shove her against the locker and make her play Pokemon with me.
Right.
And she's like, oh, huh?
Right. So she ends up in the library with Giles, and he's skeptical at first until she starts repeating back to him the things he's thinking. And he realizes that the demons were telepathic, and that's why they don't have mouths, and that must be the aspect of the demon that Buffy has gotten. So then we cut to English class, and Buffy reads Nancy's mind, and she starts rattling off everything Nancy is thinking about Othello, which is the topic of discussion in the English class, to impress the teacher and the rest of the class. And then she proceeds to read the teacher's mind to get information from her that she then recycles to the teacher to impress the teacher. And she also hears Willow and Xander's surprise that Buffy actually did the reading and the homework.
Yeah, and Xander's like, was I supposed to do the reading?
Right. Willow's also surprised that Buffy understood the reading.
I was like, wow, that kind of
right.
Like,
right.
That should have been like a mate. Like, wait a minute, that's how you feel about me? You
right.
think
Like
that dumb?
Right. Like Buffy totally should have been like, you think I'm stupid?
Yeah. Like, I get it that you would think I wouldn't do the reading and all that, but
to not
if I did the reading, that I'm just straight up stupid.
Right. Wouldn't understand it. Like, come on. Xander, of course, has some inappropriate thoughts about the teacher.
Very Joss Whedon thoughts.
Yeah. And she also hears Freddie Iverson's thoughts about how the other students are dumb and just need attention. Joss actually wrote this scene.
I have no doubt.
He wrote this scene and one other scene in this episode. So
completely unsurprised.
So then we cut to the mansion, and Buffy is talking to Angel, trying to use her newfound powers of mind reading on him. And she
did almost fry him when she came in.
She did, yeah.
Literally almost fried him when she came in, because he was like right by the opening or whatever, and he has like huge blankets or curtains or whatever blocking, the sun and everything, and she just walks in and like you just see smoke come off of him. He's like, oh.
So she's asking him leading questions about faith and what everything that happened, last week's episode, and you can tell like he almost immediately senses what's going on, and he tells her, you can't get inside my mind, and she's like,
and she's like, can't I? And then she shows him one nipple.
Right.
And he's like, okay, you're in my mind.
And she's like, at first she tries to play dumb, and then she's like, why not?
Yeah.
And he says to her, what does he say? I kind of liked this line, even though it's like complete bullshit.
Yeah. But it's like the mirror.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Like, he can't see my reflection in the mirror. I don't reflect in your mind.
Yeah.
Your brain
Yeah,
either.
yeah. He said it's like the mirror. The thoughts are there, but they don't reflect in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Which I liked it. It's a good line. Like,
But I swear, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but later on, either in Buffy or Angel, aren't there instances of people getting into the mind of a vampire?
Not that I recall. I honestly don't remember.
Think of Lorne and his gift.
So
we don't have to go into it because that's major.
Right, that's major
spoilers and
and major down the line.
Yeah.
But we can discuss briefly when we shut down. Where was I? So yeah, he's like, you can't read my mind, and then he's like, don't play games with me, like, ever. It's not necessary. Let's just have a fucking adult conversation about whatever you want to talk about.
She's like, no, I'm 17. I have to play games. He's like,
she almost basically kind of does say that.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, okay, fair enough.
So they do end up having a actual conversation about what happened last week, and he basically tells her, he's dated dozens of bad girls over his lifetime, and like Faith, and he's over it. He has no interest in that anymore. And he's tells her that in his 243 years he's only ever loved one person, and of course it's her.
He's like, no, Drusilla.
Right.
He's like,
that's me, right? And he's like, no, it was Darla.
He's like, all right, I'm lying. It was actually Spike.
He was like, you don't know this, but he was quite the poet before he was turned.
And hung
like an Arabian stallion.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, he reassures her that she's the only girl he's ever loved, and he also kind of gives her a warning that this new power could have its drawbacks. He's like, there's what does he say? He's something.
Sometimes things that are great can hurt you, basically.
Something like, right. And she's like, like immortality, and he's like, yeah, I'm dying to get rid of that. and she's like, oh, she says something like, oh, you're funny. And he's like complete deadpan. Like, I loved it. He's like complete deadpan, stoic face, looks at her, and he's like, I'm a funny guy.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of, I don't remember if it was earlier or if this is coming up, where Xander says to Oz, he's like, you almost made a facial expression. And Oz is like, well, I considered it.
It was when they were talking about how great the basketball game was.
Yeah, that was it.
Xander was like, yeah, you almost had an expression. And Oz was like, I thought about it.
Yeah, I did. Well, no, he goes, to be fair, I did think about it.
And then we cut back to Sunnydale High, and what's happening there?
Well, we're in the library, and you know what's happening. Massive orgy. There are clothes everywhere. There's disco balls. There's fucking coke on several different tables just everywhere. Fucking, they're just doing rails of coke and fucking, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy. I mean, considering this was on the WB, the hardcore penetration they were showing was shocking, to be honest.
Yeah.
It really was.
Meanwhile, there's also a fire happening.
Oh, of course. There's always a fire.
There's always a fire.
There's always a fire. I mean, they're pretty much, the Scoobs are pretty much used to that now. Principal Snyder comes running in and he's like, and he just starts taking his clothes off. And he's like, I'm getting in on this. And they're all like, no, don't take them off. And he takes them off. And he is hung like a fucking horse, dude. Snyder is.
I was just thinking about how our podcast, not the Buffy show itself, but our podcast is kind of like how in house, like they always think like it might be lupus, but it's never lupus. And we always talk about how there's a fire, but there's never a fire.
Right. There's never a fire. Oh, there wasn't that one episode though. Remember? I think it was season 1. There was
I don't remember which one, but I do remember we had to be like, no, there's actually a fire this time.
We had to really make sure that everybody knew we weren't fucking around. Like, no, this was a legit fire. But yeah, anyway, they're in the library and the whole gang is there. Everybody's there, and Buffy is coming clean, basically telling everybody what the aspect is, that she can now read minds. And of course, all Xander's thinking of is different things to do with sex, and Buffy being nude and things like that. And at one point, she looks at him and she goes, "Gee, Xander, is that all you think about?" And he's like, "No, I'm leaving." And he just runs. He just runs out of the library.
Yeah.
And but yeah, she's basically hearing all their thoughts, randomly, and they're kind of, Wes leaves because he's thinking about Cordelia and how he's a bad man, and like basically one at a time they're all kind of leaving, and then Buffy's like, you don't need to leave. I'm gonna leave. I'm getting a headache. So she flips them all off and she leaves, and she's like, "Fuck you, bitches. I'm out." And they're all like, "Wow, that escalated." We go out into the halls, and now this power seems to be getting stronger because the thoughts are coming from everyone around her. And I mean, it's just boom, 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 one after another. It's just all kinds of people's random thoughts, but they're all just smashing into her brain. And she hears that thought again of, if we just get rid of all the students, it'd be that easy. And she's like, fuck. So she just she just bails. She just runs out. Tries to get out of that area where all the people are. And then we cut to Giles' office, and him and Wes, they're doing research on this whole thing still, obviously, about the aspect, how maybe they can get rid of it, what it means, et cetera, et cetera. And they discover that it happened to a man in Ecuador. Which I'm like, wait, what are they reading exactly? Like, did someone, they're just like, oh, by the way, there's this guy in Ecuador who got spermed on by a mouthless demon. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Anyway, they're reading this in some type of book. I guess it's called Shit We Need to Find Out, Volume 2. And so it happened to this man in Ecuador, and
I presumed it was some sort of Watcher.
But we've already established that they're horrible. Like, the Watchers are horrible at their jobs. You know what I mean? Because, okay, like all the research and things that they always have to do in this show, it's like from tomes and things that were like ancient tomes and things that were written by other people. You know what I mean? It's like, it's never like, right, well, let me check the Watcher Chronicles, or let me, log into our database, or it's because they don't have it. There's only like 11 people that work for the Watchers. And they're all dickheads except for Giles, I don't know. But anyway, so Giles is like, yeah, I hear this. It happened to this guy in Ecuador. And he's like, but we can't contact him. And Wes is like, why? Is he dead? And Giles says, no, he's in complete isolation because he can't shut the power off. And I'm like, well, just pull the fuse. Everybody knows how to shut the power off.
Just go to the electrical box and flip the fucking switch. Jesus.
Yeah, fuck. What are you, stupid? Well, I mean, God, it's But yeah, so apparently this guy had to go somewhere far off and isolate himself so that he didn't lose his shit, I guess.
I want to talk about a couple things real quick before you go on.
No, sorry.
That you didn't touch on in the library scene, and I'm a little bit surprised. One, Oz's thoughts throughout the scene that Buffy keeps hearing. He's literally waxing philosophical so hard.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny, but at the same time, I was watching it and I was like, this is exactly what I presume is going on in Oz's head all the time.
Yeah, like always. Go ahead.
Because he's like, if I exist because of my thoughts, and Buffy has my thoughts, do I cease to exist?
Is Buffy me?
Is Buffy me? And then like later on, you hear what he's thinking, and he's like, if we think, therefore we are, is Buffy all of us?
Because she has all of our thoughts, yeah. And she just keeps looking over at him like, this guy's so fucking weird.
I was like, it's hysterical for one, but also I was like, this is exactly what I feel like is going on in Oz's head all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other one I wanted to touch on was Willow's concern over Buffy not needing her anymore because she can read people's
I brushed over it because it doesn't become a
No, I understand why you did it. I just there are two aspects that I just kind of wanted to touch on briefly.
Yeah.
Mainly because the Oz thing was just
the Oz thing was hilarious.
Was so funny and also so perfectly Oz.
Yeah.
And the Willow thing, just because I kind of feel like Willow and Xander's reactions to this would kind of be like the two standard reactions. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Like kind of like, which we kind of saw in Wesley too, kind of like the immediate, like, I need to be out of vicinity of this because I have I have too many thoughts I don't want people to know about because they're not appropriate. Or, and then alternatively, Willow's like, I need to be away from this because it worries me that this person won't need me, because now they know everything.
Right. Now they can just read everyone's minds and
right. So yeah, I just wanted to touch base.
Like, wow, Willow, do you have to make this about you?
Yeah. What a bitch.
God.
Always about you, Willow. You may proceed. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. We now cut to the lunchroom, and Buffy's in line getting some food, and this shit's getting worse. Like, not only it seems like she's not just getting like the power is getting to the point where it's widening, and she's getting tons of shit that's not in the lunchroom. It's just coming from everywhere. And it's coming faster, and it's louder in her head, and it's gotta be so fucked up.
Right. It's pounding her fast and hard.
Oh.
What? Huh?
What? Sorry.
Oh, well.
James got overwhelmed there. And then she's kind of staggering around, and she hears a thought that I'll kill you all. Tomorrow I'll kill you all. And at that point, she drops her tray. And of course, all the students do the clapping thing and, oh, good job, dipshit. And she's just like, and falls over, passed out, KO'd. And we cut to a blurry shot, and it's her opening her eyes. And she's now outside. Apparently the gang had come to her rescue and decided she fell down and clearly smacked her fucking head on a marble floor. Let's move her. let's immediately, the first thing we do, let's move her. And Cordy even says that. She goes, I told them not to move you. They probably severed your spinal cord. And this is while Buffy's getting up, she says this. Buffy's like, yes, I am definitely a quadriplegic now. So the shit's still raging in her head, and she's like, she tells him, I heard somebody in there is planning to kill everyone tomorrow. Like they said, I'll kill you all. And they're like, they said, I'll kill you all tomorrow. And they're like, okay, was it a male voice or a female voice? And she's like, well, I couldn't tell. And I'm like, wait a minute. Up to this point, you can clearly tell what's coming from a boy, what's coming from a girl, and us as the audience can clearly tell that. But now all of a sudden she couldn't tell. So it could be anyone, literally anyone. And Giles is like, I'm taking you home. This is overloading your circuits. And okay, she's like, okay, and she's like, tells the rest of the Scoobs, you've got to you've got to find the killer by tomorrow. We've got to stop this. Do whatever you have to do to find him. And then she's asking Giles as he's leading her away, like, am I going to be okay? Blah, blah, blah. And one of his thoughts is that if they don't get this shut off, she's going to go insane. And she's like, oh, fuck me. And so, yeah, he takes her on home, and the Scoobs, I guess, are going to get to work on trying to find this killer. Now, let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
As a former high schooler and teenager, when you were in school, how many people do you think, on average, thought at least once a day, I'm going to kill every motherfucker in this school? You know what I'm saying? Like, or at least I'm going to kill that person, or God, I want to kill that person, or that kind. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
How was this like the only one she heard of after going, being in school all day? This is the first person she heard think something like, I want to murder all of you.
I mean,
okay, well, thank you for that in-depth analysis.
Well, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know.
I'm just saying, like, I would imagine on average, if someone really was able to read someone's thoughts or read people's thoughts, and they were in a high school, they would probably hear that thought 50 times a day. Luckily, it's mostly not acted upon, but
I guess maybe, like, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I guess maybe it's harder for me to quantify a number because I don't recall ever myself having that thought.
Well, no, I didn't either, even though I didn't like school. But I'm saying, that there are, what I mean? I mean,
right.
I don't know. I would think that it wouldn't be all that shocking to hear someone think that. But, I guess it's good she did take it seriously. But I don't know. I just don't know that I guess what I'm saying is I don't know that had I been in that position, if I would have taken it all that seriously, I would have been like, oh, well, that's probably, 5 out of 10 kids in here have that thought at some point today. So,
right. Well, and I mean, that is something that's brought up in this scene. Like, they ask her, they're like, are you sure it was serious? Like, because even Xander's like, come on, who hasn't idly thought about, taking out a bunch of people with a semi-automatic?
It's a semi-automatic, and they all look at him, and he's like,
I said idly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're right. But I don't know. I guess I didn't think too much of it because, like, I think it plays into the idea that Buffy is, the consummate hero.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
I just
like I don't think
it. I felt like
I don't think her reaction would have been any different if she had heard one person think it or 15 people think it. I think if she had heard 15 people think it, she still would have been like, we need to figure out who these 15 people are.
We need to find all 15 of these people and beat
And
them severely.
and figure out what they're planning, if they're planning anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I don't know. Like I said, I think I was just taking it from my own perspective. Like, I definitely, and I guess that's why I'm not a superhero, because I would have been like, oh, fuck me. That's the 8th time I've heard that in the last 15 minutes. You know, I wouldn't even have thought about it. I would have just been like, get me the fuck out of here. These people's thoughts are driving me crazy. But anyway, we cut to the library, and Willow's in charge, buddy. She's breaking everything down to the scoobs and, you know, what they're going to do. And, you know, she doesn't go into real specifics yet, but she's obviously saying, you know, we're going to find this motherfucker. We have to, you know, for Buffy's sake and for possibly our own sake. We have until lunchtime tomorrow. So let's get to work, fuckers. And they're all like, yes, master. Yes, master. And then she hits them all with a stick. And it's strange, but I was kind of okay with it because it's Willow, you know? Yeah, it's a very brief scene. And then we cut to, oh, do I love this scene. We cut to Buffy's house. Giles has now got her home, obviously. And Mom's got her in bed, some comfy pajamas, got her all, you know, comfy in bed and bringing her pillows and shit. And it's obvious that Mom is being kind of shifty. She's not wanting to stay in close proximity to Buffy that much. She's going and getting her pillows. She's going and getting her extra blankets. She's like, hey, you want some soup? How about some chicken and stars? And Buffy kind of realizes what's happening. And she's like, what are you doing? Why don't you want to be near me? And all of a sudden she raises up and stares at her. And she says, you had sex with Giles on a cop car twice? And Joyce is like, clearly mortified, and she's like, it was the candy, and it was, you know, it's from what was the name of it? Hard Candy? Was that the name of the episode?
Band Candy,
that was it. And sorry, that was Hard Candy was a album by Counting Crows that I like. Anyway, so she's mortified. Buffy's mortified, and she quickly exits stage left, and Buffy's just like, the fuck. Wait a minute. Do you think Mom could be pregnant with Giles' sperm? I mean, sperm. She's pregnant with his sperm. His hellion.
No, because Band Candy was like a year ago at this point.
Oh, was it that long ago?
Yeah, because that was Band Candy was season 2.
Oh, you're right. Was it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Hold on.
Oh. I believe you.
Let me double check.
You're usually good on those things. I believe you. Wow, it doesn't seem like it's been that long. Okay. Well, anyway,
go ahead and continue. I'll look.
So we cut back to the library, and Willow is now assigning each person basically.
Oh no, I'm wrong. Band Candy was this season. Band Candy was this season.
Okay. So it is possible that Mom could be knocked up.
I think she would be showing by now.
Maybe she had an abortion. Okay. So anyway, Willow is assigning everyone. She's giving them basically scripts. She wants everybody to talk to certain people, and under the guise of that it's for the yearbook or that it's for, you know, a story or whatever. And she's like, you know, stick to the script, you know, ask them nonchalantly, and no one should be any the wiser. And at one point, or when she's done explaining everything to them, she's like, all right, let's go, people, come on. And they're all like, whoa. And Ozma's like, ooh, I like this side of Willow. And she winks at him. No, I'm just kidding. None of that happened. So we immediately see that Willow is up first, and she has Jonathan. And he's in a chair, and she's doing a pretty good, you know, CSI the interrogation of poor little Jonathan, and he's just sitting there like, and he's answering her questions like, yeah, and I guess, and okay, and it's just, long story short, she pretty much decides, okay, it's not Jonathan. And then we cut to Oz. Now we're gonna have a lot of cuts here, and I'll just go through them fairly quickly. We're gonna cut around to the Scoobies talking to different students. So we cut to Oz, who's talking to the basketball star dude, Hulk Hogan, and he's asking him questions. Like, is it hard to live up to the expectations, and do you feel, pressure and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. And Hogan's like, he's like, yeah, I guess a little bit. And he's like, is that the right answer? Because I want to be right on this. And so that was clearly not Hogan. Cordy goes to talk to Mr. Beach. Is that his name?
Yeah, Mr. Beach.
She goes to talk to Mr. Beach, and she's like, hey, I just wondered if you were planning on killing everyone tomorrow. She just, because it's Cordy, you know how she is. And she's like, it's for the yearbook. And we don't hear his answer, but obviously it's not Mr. Beach. Although he is sharpening a knife when she comes in there to ask him that. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he is a killer. Xander is questioning 3, quote unquote, hot chicks. And basically just so he can talk to 3 hot chicks. Because he's asking him stuff. Oh, gosh, I forget exactly what he said, what question he gives to him, but do you remember?
What's your perfect date night?
Yeah, like what's your perfect date night, like shit like so. Yeah. So Xander once again is being zero help in a time of need. So obviously it's not any of those girls. Then we see Oz. He's going to, which we forgot to speak about this Freddie Iverson guy earlier. I guess I should, or no, you had that scene in English class.
Yeah, I mentioned him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, I must have ignored
about how Buffy heard his thoughts about how all the other kids are idiots and they're just seeking attention.
I must have been ignoring you at that point.
You usually do.
Oz is now going. Student Freddie Iverson has his own fucking office, by the way, in school.
Well, he's the editor. He's the editor.
Paper.
Yeah, he's the editor of the school newspaper.
Yeah, but I don't think. Yeah, anyway.
My school had a newspaper office.
I don't think mine did. I don't even know if mine had a newspaper, to be quite honest. Really, I don't think they did. Anyway, so Oz goes to Freddy's office, but he's not there. But we see he's actually hiding under the desk. So we're like, And we cut to Buffy's house that night, and she's at her window at this point, looking out of her window, and now she's being able to hear the thoughts coming from like all over her neighborhood. She's hearing neighbors' thoughts everywhere, and it's again, the power is continuing to grow, and she's just like, fuck, and she closes the window and she gets back in her bed, and she's just kind of covering her ears and just like, get out of my fucking head. And then I don't know. We cut back to the library, and Giles and Wes are making a potion. Which maybe I missed it, but at some point did they say where, when, how, or why they found?
No.
Okay. That's all of a sudden they're making a potion. Oh, we know the cure. We're making a potion.
Well, Giles does say in this scene, because Wesley says something to him, and Giles does say that they have no idea if this solution is going to work.
That's true. They do say that.
So,
but anyway,
but that's the only that's the only thing they really say about it.
Yeah, and Giles, he's like, okay, but we still need the heart of that second demon that got away from Buffy. And he's like, but how are we going to get it, and who's going to get it for us? And then we cut to
Twice?
What in the
Twice?
fuck? Oh, I bet I know what it is. Yep. Angel, and he's beating the shit out of the second demon. Like, he is fucking housing this thing. He's throwing it around like a rag doll and just beating. I almost, in a small way, feel bad for this demon, because he is just wrecking it. And I think the demon gets in like maybe one little oomph, one little kind of attack or whatever, but it's not much of anything. And we cut away, but he's just fucking this demon up.
Well, the attack, yeah, I mean, I guess so. The attack that the demon does get in does put Angel on his ass, and
yeah, but he like immediately gets, and then the demon runs, and then
the demon runs, and that's when we cut.
Yeah, Angel's like, you son of a bitch.
Mm.
And then we cut to Buffy, who is now unconscious, catatonic, whatever you want to say. Mom and Giles are in her doorway, and they're very concerned. They're like, we've got to handle this like ASAP, or shit's gonna get cray. And then they start making out, which is so weird, but not weird in a way, because they've already fucked twice on a cop car. So
before you go on anymore, I wanted to touch on something.
Oh, what are you touching?
There was the scene in the library where Xander, Cordy, Willow, and Oz were talking about tracking down the person that, the potential killer.
Mm-hmm.
And Oz makes a comment about how school shootings have almost become a trend at that point. So I want to give you some numbers real quick.
Okay, bring me down.
So he says he makes the comment that school shootings have pretty much become a trend at that point. When this is in 1999, okay?
But before Columbine.
But before Columbine. And I think for most of us in our age group particularly, and which is probably the majority of the age group that's listening or younger, Columbine was like the beginning of what has certainly become a epidemic here in the US.
Oh yeah.
School shootings. Specifically just school shootings. Don't even get me started on mass shootings.
Right. Or just gun violence in general.
Right, as a whole. Just focusing on school shootings. So I did some digging, some research, and at this point in 1999, there had only been 330 school shootings in American history. The first one being in 1840 to this point in 99. 330 school shootings. In the 169 of those happened in the 2 decades prior to this episode.
Sure.
Since 1999 to right now, there have been 304 mass school shootings. or fatal school shootings.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I guess if it was happening frequently enough back then for the social commentary that was made in this episode to be, well, it's practically a trend at this point. What does that make it now?
A pandemic.
Right. Just like I just said.
Yeah.
Um,
It was a trendy thing then, and now it's just a straight up society is just unfucking raveling itself. Just speaking for myself, if I had kids, which I don't, and God help me, I hope I never do, and they were school age, this might sound weird, or I don't think I would send my kids to school, because there's just, this shit just happens way too frequently now. And it's just become a thing where it's just like, well, you have to expect it. At some point in your kid's school life, there's gonna be an active shooter. It's like, no, fuck that.
Right. Yeah.
I honestly say, when I was in school, never once did it ever enter my mind, hey, I could get mass murdered today here in school, because I was already well out of high school by the time Columbine happened. And so,
I was in the last half of my senior year when Columbine happened.
Yeah, I had already been out for a couple of years. So I don't know. I don't think I would have my kids in school.
My sister kept my oldest nephew home from school 2 weeks ago because someone threatened a shooting at the school. So she kept him home, as a lot of parents did. They didn't close the school. Like, they didn't shut the school down for the day or anything.
Should have.
Oh yeah, 100% they should have.
Mm-hmm.
They just had some cops show up, look around.
Somebody wants to shoot up the place bad enough, that's not going to do shit.
Right.
So,
but yeah, I don't know. That line got to me, and it kind of, provoked the idea of wanting to like look up the statistics and the numbers on this. And I already knew the numbers were ridiculously outrageous.
Yeah.
Especially in the post-Columbine to now time frame. We're talking 304 school shootings in a roughly 20 year period.
Yeah.
That's almost as many school shootings as happened between 1840 and 1999. Well over 150
years.
50-year period. Like,
I know.
It's
like I said, it's commentary on humanity, or not even humanity. It's commentary on Americans and how far we have let shit get out of hand.
Yeah, I think it's a commentary on what we value.
Well, yeah, we are the only country in the world
that this happens.
Who has this sickness for
guns,
for firearms. Yeah,
right. And that's what I was getting at with the comment. It's an indictment of what we value, and
we value guns over lives. Absolutely.
Over lives, specifically over the lives of children.
Yeah, I know. It's sad and sick, and yet it is what it is, and it probably will always be that way.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but what are you going to do, James? What are you going to do?
Yeah. Anyway, sorry about the derailment, but like I said, the Oz's line kind of got to me a little bit, and I wanted to dig up the numbers and kind of see what constituted back then a trend at that point.
Yeah, because I do recall prior to Columbine there being a handful of other shootings, I believe in the 90s, where it did kind of feel like, holy crap, this is becoming a thing now. And then Columbine happens, and then kaboom, it's just copycat fucking central, up to this very day.
Right.
So, and all these precautions that schools have supposedly taken, and all this, and it still is doing not a goddamn thing.
Right.
So,
Well, kind of to defer back to what we just said a few moments ago, everyone knows what the goddamn solution is.
yeah.
But the people that need to make it happen are never going to make it happen.
Never.
Because their pockets are getting fatter.
Well, yeah, and even the ones whose pockets aren't getting fatter, it's fear. And it's like, oh, no, I don't want to be fucking killed.
Right.
I don't have nobody has the balls to do what needs to be done, bottom line.
Right.
And the ones that do, they're never going to be in that position. So,
right.
I don't know.
Right. All right. That's all I had to say on that. Sorry about that.
Okay. Willow is now questioning, what's her name? I didn't write it down. Nancy. Yeah, Nancy from class. And, she's like, have you ever, how does she say that? Do you ever feel like you're being spied on by another student, or that it's another student is acting strange or whatever? And she's like, well, not until just now. And Willow's like, okay,
yeah, I get that.
And Xander is questioning Larry, who, as we know, came out to Xander. I think that was season 1 when he came out to Xander as gay. And so Xander's like, hey, so I know it's probably really rough, and, your secret and everything. And he's like, what about being gay? And everybody turns and looks at him, and he's like, bro, I came out a long time ago. He's like, everybody fucking knows. I'm, blah, blah, blah. And
he says, I'm so out, even my grandma's hooking me up with guys.
Yeah. And Xander's like, oh, shit. And he's like, once again, Larry's still convinced that Xander's gay. And he's like, hey, man, I'll help you come out. It's okay. We can put a tasteful piece in the paper, in the school paper.
a coming out announcement.
And Xander's like, nah, fuck. And so, yeah, homophobia abound in this episode. And then Oz is trying to find Freddie Iverson again. And this time the door is locked to his office, and Oz is like, what the fuck? And well, Freddie Iverson's now hiding in a little hallway watching. So once again, he escapes being questioned. What's up with fucking Freddie Iverson, man? Seriously, bro.
Dun.
And we cut back to the library, and the Scoobs have reconvened, and they're going through all of their findings and whatnot, and they realize that Freddie Iverson is the only one they couldn't find and couldn't talk to. So clearly it has to be him. Now we cut back to Buffy's, and Giles and Mom are watching over her. She's completely, whatever word you want to use, in a coma, catatonic, whatever. All the voices are now just have overwhelmed her. And, they hate this. They can't stand it. And they're like, we have to do something. She's not going to last much longer. And right about then, Wes opens up the door. Angel comes flying in, covered in a blanket. And he has a big jar of blue Kool-Aid, is what it looks like, with shit floating in it. And he's like, I got the heart, and I finished the potion. And so he goes flying upstairs to Buffy. He gets her to drink it. Then she starts having these crazy, convulsions and fits and shit, and he's trying to hold her down, and he screams for Giles, and Giles is like, I'm busy. I'm fucking Joyce. And Angel's like, oh, my bad. Not trying to be a cock blocker. No. We actually cut to the Scoobs, who are heading across. They've come out of the school. They're cutting across the quad, they're clearly all heading to Freddie Iverson's office to confront him. And the camera pans up slightly, and there's a clock tower there that faces the quad. And we go into that clock tower, and Jonathan is there. He opens up a case, and it's a high-powered rifle, the type you have to assemble. And he begins assembling this high-powered firearm. And now we know why this episode was pulled, shortly after Columbine.
Well, I think even minus this specific scene, I think
because they've already talked about school shootings, as you brought up. So yeah, it's very eerie, man, that this is the episode they wrote and shot like right before Columbine happened,
Right. But even without the school shooting being like the premise or whatever, I still feel like this episode probably would have gotten pulled in response to what happened in Columbine, just because of the idea of a mass killing at a school in general.
Well, yeah.
Not specifically
not so much
because
that it was a shooting, but just mass killing out of school. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So we cut back to Buffy's, and she opens her eyes. She's awake. Everyone's around her, Well, everyone, like Giles, Wes, Angel, Mom. And they're like, "Can you hear thoughts?" And she's like, "No, I can't." And they're like, "Woo! We saved you!" And then credits roll. It's the end of the episode. No, but she is cured. It worked. And then we cut back to the Scoobs arriving at Mr. Freddie Iverson's office. And what happens there, James?
They confront him, and he thinks they're there because he wrote a bad review for Dingoes Ate My Baby.
Which is Oz's band.
And the review said, "Dingoes Ate My Baby played their instruments like they had plump Polish sausages strapped to their fingers." And like he like shows it to Oz, and he's like, "Sorry, man." And Oz is like, "No, it's fair."
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And then Freddy's like, "I get a lot of hate mail. I just thought you guys were coming to deliver some in person this time."
And then they're like, "We were," and they all start pulling out like brass knuckles and shit. And you're like, "Oh fuck, Freddie Iverson's about to get the shit stomped out of him."
Yeah, he's about to get fucked up. So they're like, "Well, fuck. Well, like, then who the fuck's the killer?" And Buffy shows up, telepathy free, obviously. And she's like, "We've still got a few minutes to lunch. We need to spread out and find him, or find figure it out." At that point, Cordelia finds a letter in Freddy's letters to the editor stack on his desk. And it says, "By this time tomorrow, you will all know what I have done. I am sure you understand that I had to do it. And although death is never easy, it's the only way." And it's from Jonathan. So now they know they're looking for Jonathan. So they all split up, and it's kind of intercut with them looking for him with scenes of him putting his high-powered rifle together. Oz checks an empty classroom. Xander looks in the cafeteria and is distracted by Jell-O.
So once again, Xander's useless.
And Buffy's out in the courtyard quad area, and she looks up and she sees Jonathan in the clock tower. And
he's also a clock tire.
And she does some Slayer acrobatics.
Yeah, in my notes I put she Jedi jumps to him.
And she crashes through a boarded up window in the clock tower, and of course Jonathan points the gun at her, and they have a relatively emotional dialogue back and forth, and Buffy is like, the fact of the matter, because Jonathan's like, you all think I'm an idiot and short and this and that, and Buffy's like, honestly, Jonathan, I don't think about you much at all. She's like, nobody does.
And he's like, whoa, what the fuck? And she's like, listen, it's hard out here for a pimp.
Right.
And he's like, wow. And then he just puts the butt in his mouth and just blows his brains out.
Buffy's like, honestly, nobody, thinks about you. And she's like, I know it's hard feeling so much pain and loneliness, and realizing nobody cares or realizes what's going on. And she's like, it might surprise you to hear this, but my life sucks pretty hard sometimes too. And he she's like, the reason no one pays attention to you isn't because you're not smart or you're short or whatever. It's because everyone's concerned with their own problems and their own worries and their own issues. And
which I don't buy any of this, by the way. I'm like, is it though? Is it really? Because she herself later on says, Giles is like, oh, maybe you should go to the prom with him to help him out. And she's like, well, I'm not a saint. He's like 5'2". That's exactly what. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. No. No.
No, I agree with it.
No, I don't agree with it even a little bit.
All right. Well,
utter horseshit.
I guess it depends on your perspective. I was always, and still am, much too worried with my own problems and whatnot to be concerned myself with anybody else, as far as like, like this, like, I don't not pay attention to people because they're bald or overweight or whatever.
You don't, right? You
don't. I don't pay attention to people because I'm too wrapped up in my own shit. Like, I don't.
Right, and I'm not saying that there aren't some of those that she's not right, that there aren't some of the kids are like that. But I think by and large, especially teenagers in high school and whatnot, that's not. People are mistreated because kids are fucking scumbags, and
Right.
and they're absolutely cliquey and they're absolutely bullies and whatnot. And so yeah, I just don't think that she's right.
But the thing is, see, so take it strictly in the context of what's happening here. Jonathan's not doing this because he's being bullied. He's doing this because nobody's paying attention to him.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, I'm just speaking in general terms, that there's bullying, there's or just, he's considered a quote nerd, and he's short and he's not an athlete, so he's just ignored. It's not because, I don't buy that it's because, well, they're too busy with their own problem. It's because what about the ones who aren't short, who aren't nerds, who are athletic stars? Well, they're paid attention to, even though these people still have their issues. You know what I'm saying? It's absolutely being ostracized. So I just think this whole commentary she's making is only right in a small subsection of these students,
So he's he's like calmed down now, and Buffy's like, I could have taken that from you at any time, and he says, I know, and she's like, but I'd much rather do it this way, and she reaches out for the gun, and he calmly hands it to her, and he says he just wanted it to stop, and she's like, well, not sure that mass murder is the doctor prescribed method, and he looks kind of confused, and he's like, what are you talking about? Well, I wouldn't hurt anybody. And she's like, like, the situation begs to differ. And that's when he tells her that he came up there to kill himself, not anybody else.
And this brings up another thing I have. Okay, why does he have to go to school up into the clock tower clandestinely with a super high powered, like, fucking sniper rifle to kill himself? Like, it's not easy to kill yourself with a rifle. Like, I don't know. I won't go into it and rag it all out, but it just seems it's very detail heavy for just, I want to off myself. I don't know. Seems a little silly.
So we cut back to the cafeteria, and Xander snuck into the kitchen area to get some Jell-O, at which point he sees the lunch lady pouring a big dumbass box of rat poison into
like
the food.
Acme rat poison box,
into the food. And this part's kind of funny. Like, they lock eyes and they literally just stare at each other for like a solid minute of the episode's
for one of them
runtime.
to wink and be like,
At which point Xander breaks the eye contact, and he runs back into the cafeteria, and he starts knocking food out of people's hands and stuff. And
she grabs a fucking butcher knife.
She grabs a butcher knife, and it's a meat cleaver. It's a meat cleaver.
Well,
it's not a butcher knife.
She's just like, fuck it. I'm gonna just start today. I'm just gonna start by killing this kid in front of everybody.
And she chases Xander down, and he trips, and she's getting ready to cleaver him, and Buffy shows up and stops her. And
K the fuck owes this bitch.
Right. She was obviously pulling her punches, otherwise this broad would be dead.
Yeah, because if she had like fucking given her one of those roundhouse spin kicks, full Slayer force, her head would have popped off.
Right. So then we cut to the next day, and before I go on, the other scene that Joss wrote was the clock tower scene between Buffy and Jonathan.
It makes sense because it was fucking wrong.
So we cut back to the next day, and Buffy and Giles are like walking into the school, or to go into the school, and Buffy's saying that Jonathan's doing okay, and he's suspended, and his parents are freaked out, but he'll be okay. And that's when Giles is like, or Buffy's like, although he's starting to get that look like maybe he's going to ask me to the prom, and Giles is like, well, it might be good for his self-esteem if and she's like, what am I, Saint Buffy?
Right.
And
thus negating everything she supposedly fucking said to him in the clock tower.
And Giles is like, well, maybe we should train and after school. And Buffy is like, yeah, we can do that. And she's like, if you're not too busy having sex with my mother. And Giles walks it right into a tree.
And credits.
And that's our episode. Also, did you happen to catch the goof 'em up and oopsie in this scene?
No, I didn't.
There is a clearly visible Torrance High administration sign on one of the buildings they walk past. Because that's the actual name of the high school where Buffy was where exteriors were filmed.
And I believe
Probably
a lot
some
of
interiors.
famous actors and actresses. That's their alma mater there in California.
I don't know about that, but it is where a lot of high school set TV shows and movies film.
Yeah, I feel like. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Go on.
Nothing. That's it. That's the end of the episode.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
No Monsterology this week. No bronze bands this week. We once again did not visit the bronze. Our body count this week is 2.
I don't know. Do you think she killed the lunch lady?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
I like to think she did.
Of course you do.
Because I mean, she clearly fucking deserved it. She was literally going to kill everyone in that school. Everyone that came and ate at the cafeteria.
Yeah. So our body count is 2. Our music this week is only our original score, as composed by series composer Christoph Beck. Jeremy.
Yes.
Why don't you give me your final thoughts and your rating on this episode on a scale of 1 to 5? How many crazy lunch ladies do you give this episode?
This is getting a 2, bro.
Okay.
I just didn't feel it from beginning to end. I liked the A plot of the mouthless demons and her getting the aspect of the demon and all that. I just feel like everything else in this episode was hot garbage.
Okay.
The social commentary I thought was way, like as we just discussed, was way wrong and way off base. Gosh, there are just so many and a lot of like plot elements that were just too what's the word I'm looking for? Like too easy, too like convenient, and I don't know when I don't like an episode, I don't like to sit and rag on it, but this episode did nothing for me. I felt like the A plot was wasted, really, honestly. And it was just weak. I don't know, it was weak. It was like you were talking about for last week, that something just wasn't there. I felt that way this week, except stronger. Like there was a big lot of stuff not there. And it just, I don't know, not a good episode. I mean, for me to get something to 2, it's pretty fucking ratty. But that's just my opinion, one guy. So James.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you give us your final thoughts on this episode? And, on a scale of 1 to 5, how many demon hearts do you give this episode?
I'm giving this episode 3 demon hearts.
Okay.
I think it's a good episode overall. I think it was written, the writing, the direction, and the acting were all very good. Particularly from Danny Strong. It was nice to see him get to do more than just stand around and look clueless for a change. I liked all the character interactions. I thought were excellent. Well, maybe not excellent, but they were up there this week. Yeah, I mean, overall, I wouldn't say it's a must-see episode by any means. And if I was slipping through channels and Buffy was on and it was this episode, I would probably skip it.
Oh, I definitely would. I'd be like, nope.
But I don't, if I was rewatching the series for purposes other than this podcast, like just a general rewatch, I wouldn't skip it. Like I would.
Yeah.
I'd
if I'm
down.
doing a rewatch of a series, I don't skip anything, even if I know that I don't like it.
But yeah, I mean, again, I think the writing and the directing and the acting all stood out in this episode more so than necessarily the plot of the episode, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you can have an episode that's not great, and it's strictly because of the plot. Like, there's no fault behind the writing and the directing and the acting. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I think that's what keeps this episode from being higher than a 3.
See, I think the directing and the acting were great. It's
right.
it was the writing. I thought it was just trash.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a 3 for me. I don't know. I think the reason the plot doesn't escalate it higher for me is because I don't feel like it has a place in this back half of the season. Ironically, if an episode was going to get pulled at this point in this season, it's a good thing it was this episode.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't hurt.
This is such an unnecessary episode with 5 episodes left and everything that's going on.
It's very much.
This is really the episode they give us.
It's very much a standalone episode from the main arc of the show.
Yeah, and in my opinion,
or of this season, and particularly of the back half of the second half of the season. Yeah. So they lucked out that it happened to be this episode that had to get pulled.
Yeah, because it's fucking trash.
So, yeah, those are my thoughts. It's a 3 overall. Decent episode. I enjoyed it for what it was. Yeah.
Alrighty then. What shall we do now? Do we just sit here and look at each other and continue to record? Just to see how long people will watch us stare at each other?
Why don't you? How about if I take your role this week and you take my role? And why don't you, Jeremy, tell our listeners and our viewers how they can get in touch with us?
Well, there's a thing called there's two things. There's carrier pigeons, and there's also Morse code, which we both have Morse code setups in our rooms so that we can receive, from our fans. I mean, that's how we get our shit.
Yeah. The trick is you guys finding a place to send a Morse code message.
Well, they just go to their town's local
telegraph.
What was it called? What's it called? Anyway, yeah.
Pony Express.
Yeah, that joke went to the toilet because I couldn't think of the name of the fucking thing. But anyway, no. BuffyRevisited.com will take you to not only all of our episodes that you could play right through your browser, but it'll also give you a link to every way to get a hold of us. It'll give you a link to our Facebook. It'll give you our email address, which is buffyrevisited@gmail.com. It'll give you a link to our OnlyFans, which is nipples. And, but yeah, it's not hard to find us. Unless you're looking for us on Twitter, in which case you will not find us.
Right. Well, you'll find us, but you won't see any updates since the end of last season, because that is when we stopped actively using the Twitter account because Elon Musk. But we do. I'll put this out there: if Twitter is your preferred communication method,
you have problems, and you should be looked at.
We do still receive the notifications.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, like
meaning you, because I don't.
So if you do want to comment there, go ahead. We'll get it. It's just definitely not one of the preferred methods to get a hold of us. We would much prefer Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah, because that's the other thing is that you go to Buffy Revisited .com, you'll see that we also have the link to our YouTube channel.
Right.
And plus, I believe on our Facebook page, Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited, you have a link tree on there also, right?
Yeah.
Which has got links to all of our shit. So
links to all of our shit.
It's not hard to track us down.
Nope.
So yeah. Wait, I'm trying to think of what's your role after this, because I'm playing your role now.
Now we're done, and you close out the show.
Now I'm in Inception. Yeah.
Did you have a stroke?
I might have.
What is going on, Jeremy?
I smell almonds.
What the fuck, dude?
Okay. Anyway, thank you all for joining us this week. As always, we appreciate it. Next week, James, what are we going to be talking about next week, James?
Probably chronic masturbation
and fires.
Right. No, next week's episode is choices. Is it choices?
That's right.
Yes, choices.
Season 3, episode 19, choices. We have four episodes left, ladies and germs.
Yeah, I think Earshot was our odd man out in this last bunch of episodes.
Totally unnecessary episode.
As far as quality, because choices, the prom, and graduation day, part 1 and part 2, are pretty out there. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I have in previous episodes this season, but I think out of those last 4 episodes, we might be looking at multiple 5s.
Oh yes, are you kidding?
It's possible. It's possible that we once again may break our own scale.
Yeah, we might.
So
there's no question. This episode was definitely the last for me to slog through to get to these final 4. So
right.
It's the final 4, James. It's the final countdown.
I think Earshot might be honestly the odd man out of the entire season.
Oh yeah. Earshot was, for me. Earshot was by far, and it wasn't that it was horrible. It was very bleh. Like I just don't need it. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't need to exist.
I think. Let's see here real quick. If you'll bear with me.
I'll bear myself with you.
I think this might be our lowest rated episode of the season.
Oh, I'm sure it probably is. No?
Well, we gave Anne a 2.
That was the first episode of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do recall that now.
We both gave Anne a 2.
So it's tied with
tied with Anne. It's we gave Dead Man's Party a 3.
Yeah.
Or I did anyway.
Dead Man's Party had potential though, I thought.
Yeah.
It was just missed. I'm going to give next week's episode a 69. If you know what I'm saying.
Actually, we had a lot of 3s this season.
Yeah, but I consider 3s to be average, middle of the road episodes that I hate, but they also aren't 4s or 5s.
Right.
So I would think, in my opinion, having a lot of 3s it would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Like next season, there's going to be a lot of 1s for me, which I don't think I've given anything a 1 yet. There's going to be a lot of fucking 1s next month. Spoiler alert, folks.
Wow. I have a feeling I'm not going to enjoy.
Next month, I'm saying next season. I'm sorry.
I have a feeling I'm not going to enjoy doing next season.
No, I think we've already discussed this, James.
No, I mean, like I already know, like, it's by far the weakest season of Buffy, and I know I'm not going to enjoy it episode-wise as much. But I mean, like, doing the podcast.
Yeah,
I have a feeling.
It's like I told you. I said it's going next. When we do season 4, we talked about this before we ever even recorded the very first episode of season 1. I was like, you do realize when we get to season 4, it's going to feel like a fucking job. Like, because I'm not going to want to watch the episode, and then I'm not going to want to even talk about it. Like, I'll be like, so this week, yeah, some stuff happened, and I turned it off, and I went to bed. So, anyway,
just look at it this way.
Yeah, we also get to do Angel.
We also get to do Angel season 1.
At least we don't have to do a shitty season 4 episode, each week. We get it. We get to have an Angel episode, and God, I mean, there are no weak seasons in Angel, in my opinion. So, not for me. I like them all.
I kind of feel like 5.
The final season.
Yeah,
I liked season 5. There was a lot of.
I'm not saying
Angel
I didn't.
Fans that were unhappy with it. They were unhappy with the way it ended. They were unhappy with the ending for certain characters and whatnot. I didn't have a problem with it.
I'm not saying I didn't like it. I feel like, without giving any spoilers, there was a shift akin to what's about to happen with season 3 of Buffy and season 4 here that I think kind of derailed the show a little bit.
The wolf, the ram, and the heart?
Yes.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
Right.
James, any closing thoughts, any closing comments?
No, sir. Just everyone, please take some time, reach out to us in any of your preferred formats. We love hearing from you. And we look forward to seeing you guys again next week.
Absolutely. We'll see you for season 3, episode 19, Choices, next week. I've been one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
Ta-ta.